Every single company needs somebody who understands the management of systems, of servers, of cloud, of networking, of security, storage, backups, all of that jazz. And these roles are not going away. Hey, how you doing? My name is Emilio. I love the tech industry, love working in tech. 15 potential questions that you may be asked, in an interview. 15 potential questions that you could then potentially give a good answer to. Every interview is going to be different. Every company is going to be different, depending on the industry, depending on the company size, and exactly what your position description says. These questions may vary slightly. And these are questions that I myself have asked lots and lots of system admins. So these questions should hopefully give you a good framework, some of the types of questions that you may hear, and then look at studying some of this stuff yourself. Look at building your own home lab at home, which is something that I always recommend, is having your own home lab to go and build stuff, to test stuff, to destroy stuff, break stuff. And here's a little thing that I reckon you should check out as well.
So this is my Apple Watch. It's big, beautiful, but it is a little bit bulky. It's like Iron Man sitting on top of my wrist. And this little powerhouse is changing the game. This is the Ultrahuman Ring Air. Amazing. Yes, I know, my Apple Watch can call my mum and it can survive a shark attack. But do you really need a walkie-talkie when you are exercising? I don't think so. This Ultrahuman Ring tracks my heart rate variability, my sleep stages, including my REM, my deep and my light sleep, my skin temperature, my movement and recovery. Like, you can wear something bulky or you can wear something that looks so cool, so stylish. And you know what else? You get five days of battery life on this thing. But this little thing, I'll tell you what, packs a power punch. Something that I love is you can detect your low, your moderate, and your high intensity movements as well, not just your step counts. It even calculates a metabolic score based on your day's energy expenditure and activity quality. And it charges really, really quick. Hey, you wanna go pick one of these up? Down below, I've got a link to it in this video description.
The question of how do you monitor your network? What are the ways? Give me some examples of how you have monitored your network, the system health of your network. Now here, I'm talking about more than just the network. I'm talking about the systems, your cloud tech, your backups, any form of alerts, the CPU, the RAM, disk space that is running out, any weird behavior on a network, any spikes, anyone opening up, a PowerShell script onto their computer, and you go, hang on, why is John Smith opening up PowerShell? That's not right. That's the sort of stuff that I'm referring to here. But making sure that overall, all of your tech is running healthy. What is your process of monitoring your tech? Talk to me about the sorts of technologies, the systems that you put in place. So Nagios, PRTG, Foglight, you've got SolarWinds, there's a stack of them, right? There's a stack of endpoint protection, monitoring tools. There's lots of tools that you can put into place to make sure that things are running well. So I want to know that all of this tech is being monitored, tracked in some way, and that when something is triggered, I get notified that something has gone wrong, and then I action it accordingly. How do I set up a brand new laptop using Microsoft's Autopilot? Now, in the olden days, you used to build laptops the old-fashioned way. You used to create an image and then you just deploy the image, right? You would use something like SCCM and you just go and do it that way. Or you do it manually through a little USB stick and you build it that way. Or you just open up a computer and you just build it. It's ready to go. Now, people don't do that anymore. So we're now talking here about the Microsoft 365 technology, where you can now embed images, applications, packages within the framework of Microsoft 365. And then your computer is built automatically because that stuff exists on the cloud tech. So an example here is I'm purchasing 10 new Dell laptops from a vendor. Well, the vendor is going to go and add those computers automatically into my portal, or they're going to give me the hashes of those laptops where then we can add them into our portal. And as long as they're in there, the backend has been configured in a way that it's going to install a fresh copy of Windows 11. It's going to install fresh copies of all of these applications because they're all being packaged. It's going to configure them correctly. It's going to put in the right policies in place, and it's going to connect it to Active Directory, into Azure AD, for example, all behind the scenes automatically. I also want to know about your backup and recovery strategy. How do you do backups? How do you do recovery, right? I want to hear in this sort of question, what is the technologies that you're using for doing backups? There's a lot of tech out there, right? Net backup, you've got Commvault, you've got Veeam. These are, of course, tools that are used for backing up of data, backing up of servers, of systems, and then you can recover it accordingly. I want to hear about the 3-2-1 model. The 3-2-1 model. If you don't know about that, go and research it. 3 copies of data need to be kept somewhere in 2 different locations and at least one of them off-site. So 3 copies could be my production. I then got a backup to my, to my disks that are in my comms room, and then a copy of that is now in a comms room somewhere else in a different location. 2 of them, 2 different locations. So the 2 is the 2 different locations. I don't want a backup and then a backup in the same spot. I want a backup here and a backup over here. And then one of them, which is the one in the 3-2-1, is where it's actually remotely off-site. Off-site, my preference here is outside of the business altogether. Stick it up onto the cloud, stick it up onto tapes, if you use tapes, or onto disks, but then ship them off to a third-party company to be kept long-term for archives. But in this question, I want to know about incremental backups. I want to know about differential backups. I want to know about full backups. I want to know about data retention, how long I'm going to be keeping data for. What is the timestamp that I'm going to be keeping data for? How often? Daily, weekly, monthly backups. That's what I want to know about when we're talking about backups. What is a company portal used for? Give me an example of when you have used or set up a company portal. Now here we're talking about our Microsoft 365 environment again. We're talking about Microsoft laptops, desktops that are enrolled with my Active Directory, with my Azure space. They're Intune, everything's ready to go there. And I've now got a set of approved applications in an environment. This is where this app and this app and this app are okay, but these apps, they're not okay. So you now have controls of a computer around what apps are allowed to be installed and what apps are not allowed to be installed. So you could have a catalog of maybe 20 approved applications that you have set up, you've packaged, they're ready to go. They're pretty tight. And now there's an application on everybody's computer called the company portal, where they open it up and there's all these apps that are available for them to download. Think of this like an app store, but for the company. Really, really helpful. I want to know about your security brain. I want to know how you do good cybersecurity, specifically in Microsoft 365 potentially, and how am I protecting my users? My users are using Microsoft cloud services all around the world, everywhere. How do I protect them? So I want to hear your brain around security. I want to hear about multi-factor authentication, like it's a must. I want to hear about complex, long passwords that are using passphrases. I want to hear about BitLocker, where I'm actually locking the drives. I want to hear about your access controls, where you're only allowing specific users to have specific access to specific things. You don't want everything to be open. You want it to be closed down. Maybe I want to hear here around conditional access, so that only certain computers can actually access certain services. Maybe I don't want to allow bring your own devices because it's not allowed in my policy. So there's a lot of stuff here around security, but I want to pick your brain because ultimately, as a sysadmin, you're responsible for the security in my organization. So I want to make sure that this is an important thing for you and giving me some scenarios around when you've secured Microsoft 365 accounts. And then very similarly attached to this one is tell me about how you manage user accounts for Windows, for Mac, for Linux. What is your process around this? A lot of this will depend on whether the company that you're going to be working in or the company that you're in right now is on-premise, it's in the cloud, or it's hybrid. So on-premise being tech is physically on-site, cloud is tech is in the cloud, and hybrid, it's a little bit of both, right? It's a bit of both. And of course, it depends on the flavor of computers that you're running because Windows, Mac, Linux is going to be slightly different. So I'm here thinking about, well, firstly, it's good for you to ask questions. Is this a Microsoft environment? In many cases, it's going to be a Microsoft backend. So you're talking here about Active Directory. You're talking about group policies. You're talking about the controls around DNS, making sure that DHCP is all configured correctly. If it's in the cloud, you've got the Azure AD. You've got different sorts of policies and security policies. I want to know about security groups. I want to know about access that is controlled, that users are only allowed to get access to the thing that they need access to. They're part of a security group, and that's all they get access to, right? Pretty simple. Maybe here, I also want to know a little bit about how your network has been segregated, that you've got different VLANs, right? You don't have all the users into one big bunch. The users are here, the users are in a different department are here. Maybe your servers are in a different VLAN to make sure that they are segregated, that there's a route in between them. If they're using Linux, well, how is the Linux computer talking to Active Directory? How is a Mac computer talking to Active Directory? How are you controlling the security of Linux and of Macs? Because they're going to be slightly different. You're not going to be able to push out policies the same way as Windows. So on the Mac, if there's a Mac fleet, well, I'm using Active Directory, but I can't take advantage of all of the security controls in Active Directory or in Azure AD. I'm taking advantage here of something like Jamf, for example, when we're talking about the Mac. Now, a lot of questions are going to be framed probably in a technical/behavioral manner. So when I'm interviewing, I don't want to just know the answer, the technical textbook answer, because you know the amount of people that I've interviewed that have all the certs and have all the head knowledge, they know the theory, but then when you start to press them on the practicalities and get them to understand, or I want to understand from them the problem solving element. How did you get to that conclusion? So I want to know specific things about how they think. So tell me about a time, when you resolved a very high impact issue. A significant problem has happened on your network, on a system, there's an outage, whatever it is, talk to me about it. Right? And I'm going to recommend that you have several of these prepared, several ideas, several scenarios that you have potentially encountered in the past. So I like to use what's called the STAR method. The STAR method. So using STAR. So the situation, the S, what was going on? What was the situation that you were in? The task, well, what was actually happening? The action is what did you do here, right? Like what was the process that you now put in place? And you're going to spend a bit of time in the action one. What was the thing that you put in place to resolve that? And then what was the result? What actually happened after it? Did you put preventative measures in place so that it doesn't happen again? You know, what was the impact? All of those sort of things. So frame your answers around the STAR method. Talk to me about your experience in building an SOE, a standard operating environment. Now, this is not just about computers, although that's the bulk of it, but think about an SOE for building of a new server, an SOE for building of a new network switch, right? But let's just focus here, for example, on a computer, on a server. What is part of an SOE? Well, it's the operating system, it's the applications, it's the configuration, it's the end-to-end. You want to make sure that the system is end-to-end ready. You get a brand new system, computer, virtual server, whatever it is, and then by the end of it, everything is built, ready to go. You don't have to do this stuff manually. You use some sort of an SOE to go and customize, set it all up, automate the entire process. We talked a little bit about Intune and white gloving and autopilot and all of these sort of things. These are all technologies that you can use, especially in the Microsoft 365 space, to automatically build and deploy computers. Other technologies here could be like SCCM if you're running on-premise tech. How do you make sure that company data and systems are protected on a mobile device? You know, it's not uncommon for companies to be running laptops and desktops. Great, everyone needs a computer. But then what about all your phones? A lot of people forget about the phones, or they've got tablets, they've got iPads, right? This is where you need to now be managing the mobile fleet. How do you manage the mobile fleet? Give me some examples, some tools, some techniques that you have used to manage a mobile fleet. Here we're talking about an MDM solution, a mobile device management solution, something that you can use, set up to manage your fleet of mobile phones. Now you've got to think here, does the company have its own company-owned mobile phones? Or do you allow a BYOD? You bring your own device where staff bring in their own phones. And if they're bringing in their own phones, are you allowing people on their mobile phones to access company data? Do you allow them to install Outlook and Teams? Do you allow them to access SharePoint? Right? If you're going to allow this sort of stuff, well, they're accessing your company data. So do you need to put systems in place to protect that company data? Yes, an MDM of some sort. You're talking here maybe about the Microsoft 365. Again, they've got some great MDM stuff that you can build into there, but there's also lots of other tools out there to get even better technology around management of mobile devices. But it's really important, and lots of people unfortunately don't forget about that. Do you want to be able to remote wipe the device? Do you want to be able to push out applications and software? Do you want to be able to have profiles for iPhone, for Android devices? MDMs, way to go. Now I've got two servers and the servers are not communicating with each other. I want to know here, how are you troubleshooting network issues, server issues that are out there? I want to understand your brain, how you think, right? You're going to encounter this. A server is having a problem. Could be anything, right? I haven't given you a scenario around, give me an example when this happened. So this is a good opportunity where we talked about the STAR method before, is think about a scenario where something has happened with a server. Good thing, bad thing, unknown thing. And then talk to me a little bit about that situation. What actually happened on that server? But then run me through your troubleshooting. Run me through the process that you would follow to troubleshoot a server. If you want to get a little bit technical, you've got the OSI model, which is something that you learn. Well, a lot of people don't know the steps of the OSI model, and that's okay. But a lot of people that do troubleshooting generally will follow the OSI model when they are doing any form of troubleshooting. So understand at least some of the basics around the physical layer, the network layers, the transport layers. There's lots of layers around troubleshooting. But I want to know networking stuff. I want to know that you're opening up a command prompt, that you're running ping commands, you're running traceroute commands, that you're running netstack commands, that you're understanding how the network talks, that there are packets going between servers. Is the network card functioning? Is it a virtual server? Is it a physical server? So think about all these scenarios about how to troubleshoot a server. Now, this is where we get a little bit practical, but I want to understand, how do you manage conflict? How do you manage issues? How do you manage change that occurs in a business? Because I want people to not be just technical, but I want them to have an analytical brain. So this is the question that I would ask. Is a server has now crashed. What do you do? But also, what do you do with the business? How do you inform the business, right? You need to now tell people that this thing has happened. So how do you do that, right? Are you going to become all panicky and freak people out? The server's down. You can't work anymore. Or are you going to be calm, cool, collected? You're on their side. You want to try to help them. So I want to learn about how you would deal with scenarios like this. Let's say it's the primary file server hosting all the company data has gone down in the middle of the day. Technically, of course, I need to know your troubleshooting, but I want to know, how are you communicating this to the business? Are you sending them an email? Is it a Teams message? How are you communicating the outage? And then are you keeping them up to date? Are you providing updates to staff as the resolution is taking place? And then once it's finished, do you explain to staff, maybe through an incident response or a report or something, around what happened and what things have been put in place to make sure that this thing doesn't happen again? Now, we mentioned this one at the very start, but what is Intune? What is Intune? What is it for? Talk to me about the Intune. Now, of course, this one will only be relevant if you are going to be in a company that is dealing with Microsoft 365, which a lot of companies do. So I would say that it's almost like a bread and butter thing where every single administrator should know about Intune. It's pretty elementary. So talk to me about the differences of the functions within Intune. What can I do? What are the limitations? What is DNS? How do I use DNS? What is its purpose? Talk about how it's used to translate from tech to human readable, right? Talk to me about different sorts of DNS records on a physical server, on a cloud server. How does DNS work? What about DNS when we're talking about registering a website? All the basics around DNS, A name records, C name records, TXT records. There's lots of stuff around DNS. It's one of those foundational things, right? So if you don't know about DNS, go and research a whole bunch about DNS. How you are keeping your systems secure and up to date. I want to make sure that my systems are patched, that they're patched regularly. Is that automated or is it manual? Are you using tools such as WSUS? Are you using SCCM? Are you using Patch My PC? Are you using ConnectWise? There's lots of tech out there that you can use to manage the patching of laptops, of desktops, of servers, right? You need to make sure that all of that stuff is done. Patching is important. If you're not patching your tech, slap on the wrist. That's not my wrist, that's my hand. Slap on the wrist. Not good. You need to be patching all the time. Like Microsoft don't release patches because they want to make your life difficult, even though it feels like that. They actually release them because they've identified vulnerabilities. There are things that are not working well. So you need to understand that, and you need to have a process in place around how you roll out patches. How often? How do you deal with a critical patch? How soon do you deploy a critical patch? Do you have like a patching calendar that you are following, that you are patching things? What about patching test servers first before you patch the production servers, right? These are the things that you want to do in place. Do you just want to push out patches straight into production? Maybe not sometimes. You want to hold on, wait and do the testing ones first. And then one that I find very important, this is like your bonus one here. I don't want somebody who's just technical, although that's very important. I don't want somebody who's just, who knows analytical thinking and is a good communicator and can do change really well, and they're just a stellar performer. That's all great. That's all great. But if you are technical and you've only got your stuff until right now, and you're not learning and you're not thinking about the future, you're going to fall behind very, very quickly. So what I want to know is, how do you stay up to date in tech? How do you make sure that you don't get outdated, right? You've got all these emerging technologies. You've got AI, you've got automation, you've got all these things that are like there, and they're only going to become bigger and bigger and bigger. Like the AI space, if you're not in that space, you're going to fall behind. You're not going to be a great sysadmin if you're not using AI right now. So I want to know, firstly, what is the tech that you are experimenting with? What is the stuff that you're excited about into the future? But then how are you actively keeping up to date? Are you listening to podcasts? Are you reading forums? Are you going to events? Are you actually keeping your eyes and your ears in the tech space? Are you excited about tech outside of your work? Really, really important. Says a whole lot to me if you are actively wanting to learn a lot more. Let me know down below, are there other questions that maybe that you've been asked that you want to share with the group as well? Click on the subscription button, click on the bell so you don't miss out on anything. We'll see you on the next video.